back.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Okay, then there's this stuff. If you read it and your 10-foot pole sense starts tingling, i.e. you don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole, I'll totally understand. It started with Margaret posting a page from the notebooks that had a rough for Cerebus number 97, page 20, a.k.a. Church and State 2, page 936. That got some comment. Just said, brilliant issue, especially the cover. And by the way, Astoria was never a victim, even though she was chained up, which she may have enjoyed. Yeah. She was in charge all of the time, including when the Pope raped her, raped in quotation marks, after she artfully placed her lacy panties on his head. And just guessing here, gave him a waft of her estrus. Just saying. And David Birdsong jumps in. Cerebus changed the conditions of the arrangement halfway through. Sure, she offered him what she had to trade. He was supposed to let her go afterwards. And he gagged her, married her, and raped her. I would say married her in quotation marks, but he was the Pope, so it was a real marriage for a few minutes. As the spiritual and political leader of the majority of the known world, there was no authority to punish him for this action. Dave did say quite plainly that Cerebus raped Astoria. Astoria herself said later that she goaded Cerebus into raping her, hoping to become pregnant with an aardvark, if I recall correctly. Then Brian List says, that's how I wrote it originally. Well, at least that Astoria was indeed raped by Cerebus. Weird that this was the selection for the notebook, considering that there's a hashtag, time's up, hashtag, believe her gag in Color Your Own Cerebus in Hell #1, in which a certain supporting character's memoirs may or may not have caused Cerebus to tweet a hashtag of his own. Page 14, I think. Cerebus was saying, is Cerebus still the only one tweeting at, what was it? Don't believe the hallucinating whack job. And it's like, yes, definitely I was riffing on that if Astoria is writing her memoirs in hell with a question mark and they were being published, that would not be something that Cerebus would be looking forward to. And then you write, and so I took that and posted a visit to that bit. Hi, everybody. So the other day on Margaret's post, and I posted Jeff and David's comment, well, there are a lot of assumptions stated here. Let's look at the bit and see if anybody is, well, wrong. Okay, Kate, Birdsong is wrong. He said Cerebus changed the conditions of the arrangement halfway through. Sure, she offered him what she had to trade, but he was supposed to let her go afterwards. That wasn't the deal. The deal was Astoria does Cerebus a favor, and she'll ask him to do her a favor. Continuing. Okay, this seems like coding, but let's wait till it's over. Continuing. Okay, that's a thought balloon, which means we're reading Astoria's thoughts. And stop it. Doesn't seem like a consensual thought to me. viewers, please hold for Dave Sims. So get your questions into momentacerebus@gmail.com. Next time, that kernel of truth. Well, that got comment. Tyler said, okay, she was asking for it is no defense. No, I think she was asking for it is a defense if she was actually asking for it. If she said, will you have sex with me? Or will you please have sex with me? Or whatever it is, that's literally asking for it. Anything that isn't that isn't asking for it. But Astoria was the grand manipulator of Cerebus to advance her career? No, her cause, her agenda against Cerebus. She had next to no interest in Cerebus sexually, except for how he could advance her Kebalist cause. Seducing him, trying to get him to impregnate her with an aardvark baby would most definitely advance her cause. Also, the scene with Astoria stripping her panty down to her foot and her artfully turning over the plate, placing it on Cerebus' head while giving him a look at his, quote, acquired taste, unquote, was a callback to his first encounter with Jaka, if I recall correctly, except for the up-close look and taste. Jaka, sad to say, was way classier than was Astoria. I mean, just look at the source material for Astoria. Layers upon layers upon layers. Induced, purposely designed seduction. It was not a rape, in my humble and psychologically trained opinion. Have at the feminine. I would say have fun. We all know that goes without saying, don't we, girl? And then Jeff says, Matt, please ask Dave whether I'm wrong here. I mean, I pretty much got most of this from him. Jeff Tyler said, okay, feminist Dave may have said and may have tried to draw and have written about the story of being raped. But that doesn't change the fact that she was manipulating her, unless, she was just a, quote, party, unquote, girl. I think that Dave once wrote about writing and drawing her retiring to a sanctuary in order to make it up to the character for his having made her such a bad person. Not that Cerebus didn't deserve it. Jeff Tyler said, Astoria, the character upon Dave faced her, was a horrible personage. Okay, that's a lot of stuff there. I think it comes down to what your interpretation of manipulating is. Cerebus is very, very manipulative. That was one of the reasons to bring the Astoria character, which was based on Mary Astor playing Bridget O'Shaughnessy in The Maltese Falcon, as a compulsive liar. She was virtually incapable of telling the truth. She would tell whatever story she needed to tell in order to get whatever it is that she wanted to get. And I'm not sure if it's in the movie. I know it's in the book, where he said, actually, we didn't believe you. Well, we believed the $1,000 that you paid us. That's what we were interested in. Cerebus is very manipulative, and the story is very manipulative, and it was like, okay, who's manipulating who, and to what extent, and about what?
Well, in the facts, because it ended up being 3 different posts, and comments on all the posts, so that's why I sent everything up. But I get to the bit in High Society where Elf sends the package of drugs and Astoria puts it out in the fire and gets high and then comes on to Cerebus. And I did that whole bit. I think it's like 12 pages. And I pretty much was saying, yes, very manipulative of Cerebus, but at the same time, she stopped. I don't think Cerebus was manipulated by Astoria after Jaka shows up at the end of High Society and says, tell her you're going to leave. You don't have to leave, just tell her you're going to leave and see what she does. I posted that panel, and then I posted that I agree with my evidence that Cerebus isn't getting manipulated anymore is that the last time he sees a story in high society is he's walking out the door and closing on her, and she's screaming at him, "Get back here, you got to do what I say."
Right.
I personally believe, yes, it was a rape because the marriage wasn't a real marriage, because part of a marriage is someone says, "I do," or "Do you?" and you say, "I do." And with a gag in your mouth, you really can't say "I